We got the dopamine this time around, Joey.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
we we've been waiting for it, and we finally got it. Before we get into it, welcome back to this episode of the Hoth Hangout. My name is Ben, joined
And I
by.
am Joey. What's up?
Let's
I'm happier
go.
today.
we're, we're definitely in a much better mood maybe this time around than we were last week at the same time.
Mm,
Particularly because we got a lot of excitement out of this episode, probably more so than definitely more so of any other episode of the show so far.
right.
But I guess before we hop into the specifics, what were your overall feelings going into the episode in terms of what you expected versus what we got?
I thought a lot about our discussion last week and how we wanted the last two episodes to just be one episode, and I think I was fully expecting this to be the raid. I was fully expecting this to be the episode we've been waiting for, and I believe they did it. They did exactly what I wanted them to do, and a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I was honestly a little bit surprised that it was like all done in a single episode. I expected it to cover
Mm,
maybe two episodes with the pace with the way the pace of things had been going.
right.
But
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes.
Overall, probably say it was my favorite episode of the show so far. Um,
Yes.
and then yeah, I don't know. I mean, my major takeaway, I definitely have some nitpicky things about the episode too in terms of like specific characters.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but going back to last week's episode, um, we touched on like which characters we thought we would make it. And actually, I went back and I watched that piece,
Okay.
and you did
Mm-hmm.
better than I did
Yeah.
because
Oh, right.
spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode, um, more characters died than we probably expected to die.
Yes, this was very much a Rogue One wipe almost.
Yeah.
The the amount of lives taken in this one of the characters that we've grown and to understand over the past few episodes really, yep, they're almost all gone now.
Yeah. I thought maybe we could go one by one and kind of talk about each of those characters, sort of as like an RIP send off,
Oh yeah,
for those that we
oh
were.
sevens, oh
Yeah,
sevens in the chat.
exactly. That we were able to that we lost this episode, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Um, so I mean, the first one which we agreed on that would not make it to the end of the episode, if I recall correctly, was Skeen, but
Hmm.
not for the reasons that I think we both thought he wouldn't make it to the end of the episode. In fact, maybe the
Right.
opposite reason.
Yes. I mean, he made it out of the raid. He made it out of the mission.
Yeah,
But as we saw, he did not make it out of the episode. I definitely didn't see that coming
I
from
really
his character,
I didn't either.
and I don't know, and I don't know if this is where the nitpicking of characters discussion has begun. This seems like I didn't see this coming at all
Hmm.
in the way that you're just like it was almost disappointing. Like, oh come on, dude, like this is kind of where this is where you ended up with this character, where he came in, he was very, you know, very protective of the group. Then to be able to completely flip it on its end after the mission's over, I didn't buy that as much. I did. I mean, there was a plot twist, and I guess I appreciate that. But yeah, the way that his character ended, I was just like, oh, that kind of sucks. But I, you have to have those. You sometimes do have to have those characters that are just double agents or double agents or whatever. So yeah, to see that, to see what happened to him was disappointing. But yeah, he did not make it.
The thing that I think people, ourselves included, I'm totally in this group of people. The thing that I think people don't realize a lot of the times is that when you have a show like Andor, excuse me, that's doing something different from the traditional model of Star Wars. and this is
Yeah.
true for stuff outside of Star Wars too. Whenever a show does anything outside of the traditional model of what is expected of something, in this case, Star Wars, um, the past 2 episodes we've been like, oh, it's kind of slow paced. It doesn't really feel like Star Wars, but we don't hate it. But we're getting
Right.
all this like information about character development and motive, and why they're involved in the rebellion, why this character is fighting, and what this person is fighting for. Um, I felt like a lot of that was kind of undone with this episode in a
Mm.
in a
Sure.
way where I was thankful we finally got some action, but in a similar manner to the raid, I almost wanted to ask at what cost.
Right.
which
Right.
which
Yes.
by the way is also not something we've talked about yet. Like I still don't know why we're on this raid. Like why do we need these credits so badly?
Right.
You
Right.
know, is it to fund something specific? Because it's not going to make a dent in the Empire's
Right.
finances. I think we can
Yeah.
kind of safely assume that. Uh, they still haven't really, and gosh, I hope we get the information on why they went
Right.
on the raid.
Yeah. Right.
Because it doesn't even really seem like this rebel cell knew, or for that matter, even really cared. They were just like, we want
Right.
to be a part of a rebellion. Like we're not
Eh,
we're not with the
Right.
Empire. We want to be a part of something bigger, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna steal the payroll.
Right.
So I
Right.
I want
It,
more information.
yeah. And going back to what you were saying with at what cost. At what cost is basically the last 2 episodes, right? Like
Yeah,
the all that character development, all kind of undone with well, in particular with Skeen.
yeah,
That that this whole time we were kind of rooting for this team, only to kind of see it all blow up right in front of us just a couple episodes later. Now we talked about it last week where this is the kind of stuff that we want from our stories. We do want all of this. I think us waiting a week between the episodes maybe gets us a little antsy, but again, we had to used to wait 3 years for for movies.
yeah,
So I think like well, if we're going back to the list of the people that did not make it, I think Skeen, although was necessary in that moment, and and I think he was more of a plot point to show Andor's
yeah,
um, progression into what he has to end up doing. And he knew the right thing to do there. I mean, he obviously could have just bolted and split the 40 million. That's not that's a lot. That's a lot for one person to have to be with. But he did not make that choice. He made the choice to side with Vel and the rebellion to some extent. I mean, he's piecing out now. He's saying, "Give me my cut and I'm out, and you could have the rest. I don't even care about all that, right?"
yeah,
So, because I think now he knows that even these rebel cells. I mean, no one's going to be perfect in these types of things. I mean, you lost practically the entire team with this. So to put himself in harm's way for any other rebellion uh, raids or missions may not be worth it to him at this point.
yeah, yeah. Why we are still talking about Skeen, and kind of on him. I don't. Um, I just wish I feel like the story about his brother, and you mentioned that his death says more and serves the purpose of the character of Andor. That's like I think the intention behind it. Um, but kind of odd storytelling. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
I
and
Yeah, go ahead.
no, and I think it's we're in uncharted territory as far as Star Wars is concerned. I mean, not maybe not completely uncharted. We've had a couple of TV series here, but relatively speaking, in the grand scheme of Star Wars starting in '77, this is new. This is a new way to tell these stories. So they're not all gonna hit. Please refer to Boba Fett. So
Yeah.
um, I mean that was an entire series, but yeah. So I think they were trying something here, and in this type of thing does not feel like Star Wars, right? I think that's where we get a little bit territorial on how we expect these things to go.
I agree.
And then when they don't go that way, you're like, whoa, 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 that's not at
Ye-
all
Yeah, you're
how
you're
it should be.
you're expecting the Star Wars ending, and then like
Mhm.
Cassian takes out his blaster and shoots a character who's been a main character for the past 2 episodes, and you're like, oh, wait, that can happen in this show? You know what I mean? Like
Right, yeah.
it
You tend to forget.
feels, yeah, it feels. Which I guess, while I think it was kind of an odd way of uh, finalizing that character's story arc. I appreciate this is the okay. This is the same reason why I say, not exact same reason, but the same reason why I say The Last Jedi is,
Mm,
in my opinion, a better movie than The Rise of Skywalker, because while it still is not my favorite Star Wars movie by any means, it's near the bottom. It
yes.
tries to be different, which is
Right.
what this show, particularly like the end of this episode, I felt was doing. Um,
Mhm.
Last episode when we were saying like, well, you think this person's gonna live, this person's gonna live, this person's not gonna make it. You know,
Right.
in my mind, it's like, yeah, we're probably gonna lose somebody, and then we
Mhm.
lose like more than half the squad, and it's like,
Right, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
okay, that's how
Right,
this show's gonna
exactly.
go.
Mhm.
So Skeen, I guess kind of odd, just him. I offers to Andor, you take half, I take half. Andor's like, nah, man, and just boom, that's
Yeah.
the end of Skeen. I was like,
Right, yeah.
okay. And
Right.
then to connect Skeen to another character, this was the part of the episode that actually bothered me the most. The next thing I'm gonna say, um, Nimic, who
Mm.
R.I.P. I was so upset. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're gonna get him to the doctor. Okay, don't worry. Like he's gonna be like
Right.
he's gonna be like, if you've seen Game of Thrones, he's gonna be like Bran, the three-eyed
Yeah, yeah.
raven. It's gonna
Yep,
be
yep, yep.
fine. And then it was just like, oh, wait, he didn't make it.
Right, yeah.
But the piece of that connects the two of them that I wanted to point out, which was the part of the episode that lacked the most sense for me, was Skeen is so adamant when Andor is getting ready. In fact, Vel is not. Vel doesn't want to go to the doctor,
Right,
and
right, right.
Skeen
Yeah,
is
yeah.
is so adamant to the both of them. He's like, we would not be here without him. Like we
Mhm.
need to go to the doctor. He almost forces the issue, and
Right.
like 3 minutes on screen later, he's betraying them. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Right.
That did not connect for me. I don't know. Any insight into what that maybe was all about?
I mean, my only stab at something that could make sense is maybe truly he was rooting for him to make a comeback and make a recovery, full recovery from that, or any type of recovery. Then realizing, well, doesn't seem like he's going to be making it, and then he starts to decide. He makes that decision to cut his losses and
Yeah,
go the other way. I mean, but like you said, within the very short amount of time from being from one side to the exact other, not even like kind of in the middle, like the exact other side.
yeah,
I think that's where it's a little jarring because it doesn't make sense again, from what we've seen up until the point where he's even upset at Vel for even considering leaving him.
yeah. That's what I mean.
That
Like,
was that was consistent. That was very consistent of that character. And then, like I said, to all of a sudden to just drop it off and be like, nope, let's just leave her and split the earnings. That
yeah,
I mean, it was that's yeah. I have that same issue with that character making that choice.
he's like he is the moral conscience in that moment of the episode when it's just the three of them having to decide Nimic's fate. Like Andor's, I mean, unless someone told him, he's probably not going to go fly to the doctor unless, I don't know, maybe he
Right,
he would suggest it, but Vel
right, right,
certainly
right,
is not going to. So like
right.
the whole character arc of Skeen has been like, oh, he's this jerk. Oh, he's getting along with Andor. Oh,
Yeah,
and I feel like we were like going up, and then he was being nice. He's like, we got to take him to the
yeah,
doctor, and then it's like, no, let's steal
yeah.
the money.
Right.
I can't.
It's the like it's like the reverse arc of the hero's arc or whatever,
Yeah,
where so it yeah. I mean, because what did I say that he yeah, I said he wasn't gonna we both say he wasn't gonna make it, but
Skeen was the
I think
only
it was
one that we both said was not going to make it.
okay. Well, at least we were right.
Yeah, we got it right. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, maybe not for the reasons we thought, but
right.
um, yeah, I guess one for one in that sense.
Yeah.
A character which you got correct and I did not was Nimic.
Mhm.
And you quoted your reasoning and spot on, like hit the nail on the head with this one, was that because he has this manifesto, you thought you could see him not making it to the next episode for that reason, and him almost passing this along to to Cassian.
Right. Yeah, and and even at the beginning of of this episode where him and Cassian were, having a discussion about not being able to sleep, and Nemec continues to talk about all, his beliefs and his values, and even more when he was talking like that, I'm like, no, you're not gonna make it. I knew even then. I'm like, just the way, because when these characters, when that there's going to be a character that doesn't make it, they start talking in a certain way, right? Kind of
Mhm.
passing along information and giving motivation to the remaining people, and that was very much that in my eyes.
Yeah.
Just to even start that episode.
Yes. Definitely more of, compared to some of the characters in who we lost in the Rebel Cell, especially, definitely more of an emotional going away or passing away
Right.
for Nimic.
Yeah,
Um
and I think the way that he went to kind of shows you the unpredictability of
yeah.
doing something like this, right? Because they have these huge crates of, credits, and nobody thought to lock it down because it was all, I mean, you could tell it was very rushed. Um, yeah, and he wasn't in the right spot, and that's what ended up taking him. So
Yeah.
just that unpredictability of being a part of these types of missions. Um, yeah, and it even goes back to when they were questioning Andor about specific things about the ship and how to fly it. And so I think it just not everything's always going to be there, and that's what makes shows like this good, because if the plan worked exactly as planned, then it wouldn't be entertaining. There you have to have some hiccups in the middle of it.
Yeah. And adding even more so to the unpredictability, um, two two more. What? Okay, here's my question to you. Terramin is pretty dead. uh,
Yes,
Gorn, I
yes,
wasn't sure. Like it almost looked like he got hit in the shoulder.
in the shoulder, right? Yeah, I would agree with that.
So
But
I
Star Wars, no one's ever really gone.
sure. I guess we don't know for certain
Mm,
that Terramin is gone.
right.
The way it was depicted in the show certainly made it look somewhat final,
Right. Yeah.
which to me was also a little bit of an odd choice. I mean, we did learn another piece of information about him this episode, that he was a stormtrooper.
Right. Yes.
So that was nice to see. That, I guess, that was more than can be said about. Well, no, actually, we did learn something about Cinta too. I was gonna say more than we
Right.
learned about Cinta, um,
Right.
but we did learn that her family was killed by stormtroopers.
Right. Yeah. And about that, I mean, talk about, let's just throw a couple details their way right before I mean, like,
Yeah,
uh, we had the last two episodes. I feel like they could have addressed that a little bit more, fuller
hmm,
with the stories. I mean, I get the connection between those two, because one was a stormtrooper, one was killed by a stormtrooper, so naturally you could lump those in together. But at the same time, I'm just like, oh, they kind of seem cheap. You had time to flesh that out a little bit better, but I mean, at least we got the information, which was good. So
yeah. I didn't feel like there was a lot of, and this goes back to what we were talking about last episode, because we both
yeah,
thought that Terramin was gonna make it. Um,
yes,
I didn't.
yes,
It didn't. It felt purposeless, I guess, and not purposeless in the context of the show or of the mission, I guess I should say.
Mhm.
Because obviously, like he sacrificed himself as a
Mhm.
part of the mission, so not purposeless in that sense. Purposeless in terms of plot, because we
Yeah.
didn't, was he like this riveting character who we just wanted to know, like what's his, like you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
um
He wasn't showcased
he
like the
wasn't
others.
showcased. Yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so losing
Eh,
him, you're like, oh, okay. you
yeah.
know,
So I did actually watch the episode twice,
uh-huh.
and I did notice something interesting in that scene where he got shot. So,
Oh yeah, what'd you see?
if you remember, it was him and Skeen. I think they were both already inside the ship. He tells Skeen to cover him. And if you look at Skeen, he is very
Hesitant.
scared.
Yeah.
Very hesitant, very scared. And I don't know Skeen's background in these types of battles. You just never know if they're literally just people that they picked up off the street or you. So he was very timid in the cover. So
Mhm.
he's able to get a couple of shots off. But then when he goes to go save Vel, he stops. Skeen stops shooting. So, but and every time you've seen someone say "cover me," they are covered the entire time they're running.
Yeah.
But when he started running, he pulled back again. So, kind of shows you the experience that Skeen has in that situation, which is not much. Um, and not to say that he did that on purpose or anything like that. I don't think that's the thought I'm having. But again, it shows you that these types of rebellion missions, um, especially if you're not dealing with people that have been in the military or in some type of organized organized army like Tamarin, he was a stormtrooper, right? So he knows about procedure, he knows about cover. But to expect Skeen to do that was not the call, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree that there wasn't a ton of emphasis on his character, anyways. I mean, I think Lieutenant Gorn had even more, much more
Oh,
emphasis on
definitely.
his because you could see his involvement with the Empire. You saw his involvement with um, kind of on being on both sides. And
Yeah.
what my favorite part about Gorn is that you know his thinking as he's walking around the empire. You know his final, what his motivation is. It's not going to be staying here with the empire. It
Yeah.
is to ultimately be a part of this raid and basically steal from the empire.
Yeah. You're like with him on the inside of a double agent
Right.
mission.
Yes.
Which
So I
would
did I did appreciate that part of the storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it makes it slightly odd if he actually is dead, which
Mhm.
my money is leaning towards no. I feel like
Mhm.
he's gonna go through some sort of interrogation process. I gotta go back and rewatch it again. I
Yeah.
I don't think it looked like he was shot in the shoulder,
No, I did. Yes, I agree with that as well. It looked like it was a shoulder.
but I
Hit.
think I hope we get more of Gorn. I think it would be kind of an odd choice, way more odd than Tamarin dying, even than uh, to have Gorn not
Mhm.
be a part of the show anymore. But we'll see.
Right. And because of all the setup going into it with with all the setup that he had done with it, it just seems like it would be a waste to get rid of that character at this point.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I hope we'll be seeing more of him.
Hmm.
Um, Senta and Vel both making it through the episode.
Yes.
Vel, I don't know. Seems things seemed to break down a little bit for her mentally,
Yes.
like halfway through
Yes,
the
I
raid.
agree.
She felt
I
like she
agree.
lost a bit of control of the situation once Tamarin and Gorn didn't join them on the ship. Obviously,
Right. And even before that, when her and Cinta were jumping off that bridge,
yeah.
she was very and basically making the no go call.
Why are you
She was
hesitating or something? What did Senta say? You're
mhm.
stalling or
uh
something like
yeah,
that.
you're stalling, right? Yeah. So and I don't know if it was real having the realization that this is actually happening,
Yeah.
because that's the call, and that is what the leader is supposed to do is make that call. Um, and again, if this is just a bunch of, a random group of people that have no types of training in these very, very stressful situations. I can get it. I can get behind that, you know. It makes sense if these are people that have just been completely destroyed by the empire, whether their families or, their communities. But to finally get in front of this, to do these types of missions, if you've never done anything like this before, I mean, I get it. That would shake anybody that's not ready for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely shook Vel.
Definitely. But can we talk about how incredibly ready Cinta was ready for these tasks?
Yeah.
Because
I mean, she held
she
it together
was,
better than anybody. I mean, better than
yeah,
Cassian.
right.
And I think Cassian, comparatively, held it together better than most of them.
Yes, I agree.
But I think Cinta held it better,
Yeah.
held it together better than any of them. I thought.
Right. And again, she's like the one we know least about.
Yeah,
You know, so-
all that we know about her now is that she's motivated by the fact that her family was killed.
Right, yeah.
Which we didn't have before this episode even. So
Right. And I forget who said it that she was the toughest one of the crew. So I mean she's coming through for
that may have
sure.
actually been Steen, I want to say.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, but yeah, I mean because when they were in the vault ready to go, and the officer, I forget their name was. Uh
oh,
was
the
it Colonel Pettigar? Was that their name?
I want to say yes, the Colonel.
Yeah.
I just referred
Yeah.
to him as the Colonel the whole time.
The Colonel, yeah, right. KFC. No, the the Colonel, when he basically got he took out his blaster pointing at Nemec. Anybody could have taken that shot. Anybody could have taken that shot on him. But here comes Cinta out of nowhere. you
Yeah,
know, just completely ready to do it. Talk about having somebody who is absolutely ready for the cause. That's Cinta. That she is the rebellion.
yeah. Well, she definitely showed she's willing to do whatever it takes in that scenario.
Right. Absolutely.
In addition, we also got yet another episode with no Saw, no
Yep.
Bix. Although,
Yep.
of course, we got Bix early on in the season.
hmm
Very limited Luthen, although we saw him kind of happy to
hmm
hear about the apparent success
Yeah.
of the raid.
Right.
Very little Mon Mothma. We got one short scene with her in the Senate. Very little Miro. I think she was in the
Yeah.
episode, but I don't think she had a
In the
speaking
very
line.
end. hmm
And yeah, there was one other. Oh, and then Karn. Like,
Yeah, not to be seen.
where the heck is he? I just, I
Not to
mean,
be seen at all.
I appreciate that they focused on the raid,
hmm
but I think and they did this with some of the characters, but you got to like throw him in there and give him like a 1 or 2 minute scene. I thought when at the very end in Luthen's shop, I thought when that man
I thought that
started
was him
speaking,
talking.
I thought it was
I
too,
thought that was him.
and I was like,
It would have made sense.
oh, that's
It
gonna
would have
be a
been like,
cool
oh,
tie-in. And then
right, yeah,
I had subtitles on as well, and so it said
yeah,
man, and I thought it was like concealing the identity on
right.
purpose before you actually
Through the
see him.
subtitles, yeah,
Right. And then it showed him and it still said man. And I was like, oh.
right, yeah.
Like, throw
It
Karn in there. Come on. You got to like incorporate some more of the
right.
characters.
It could. I mean, he kind of looked like him. It could have been.
Yeah.
Like
No, it did.
at least get a completely different looking character. I mean, how many
I,
actors are out
I
there?
had to like squint and I was like, wait, is that him?
Right,
They chose an
right.
actor so similar in looks. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, that is funny. But yeah, I mean, yeah. And here's my thought now that we've gotten through 6 of these episodes, is that each 3 episodes is its own entity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you got the first 3 episodes, which they released all at once, kind of all lumped together. These next 3, getting ready for the raid over 2 episodes and finally getting that raid is the last episode. My theory is that the next set of episodes is not happening right after this episode. So what I mean by that is that it's going to be
Oh, time jump?
months, a year, or something like that. Because this is all packaged up and good. So that's my theory is that remember we were talking about how are they going to get from where we are now to Rogue One.
Right.
I think that's how they're going to do it, is that they're going to say, here's you know part 2 of the season 1. Now part 3 of season 1 is here, and now we're gonna do a time jump. So that's my theory on how they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, we're 5 years away from Rogue One. We have 6 episodes this season, and then next season left before, which apparently leads into Rogue One. Um, I think a time jump makes a ton of sense. I mean, he's parted ways with the crew, of which the only ones who really remain are Vel and Cinta. Um, and he's most importantly, received this manifesto. And
Right.
so, probably this next episode is going to open up. Um, I don't know, year, 2 years. What are your
hmm
best? What are your guesses? Months, years?
I'm guessing a year. I'm guessing a year and make it nice and round. It gives time for everybody to heal their wounds from what has happened here, because even the way they did the ending of this one, where you saw the panic of the empire, you saw Mon Mothma's at the Senate,
Hmm.
you seeing everyone scramble, you see the Luthans being excited about it. It felt very final, like the end of a movie, right? um where the other ones in the other episodes, you were like leading into something, like the last episode, like you're leading into this raid. Here, I don't know what to even expect at this point. So that's why I feel like it's like the end of this, this 3-part series. Now we'll go on to the next one. So yeah, I'll give it a year. So it gives Cassian the time to read, digest, live through the manifesto that Nemec has provided. It gives a little bit of more time for characters like Karn, like Miro, like Bix to get their stories in, a little bit of their timelines to flesh out a little bit more. And by the time we come back, we could see the changes in people. We'll see Cinta and Vel. We'll see and because Vel, I mean, I'm sorry, with Cinta, all the last time we saw her, she was in um the Empire officer gear,
Yeah,
right?
she ended the episode kind of with the Aldani people, like as they're watching
Right.
the Eye event happen.
Right. Yes.
Which, by the way, we haven't talked about that.
Yes.
Very beautiful.
Yes.
Entire time, all I could think about was the poor graphic designer who had to put all of this into digital effects or whatever, how they do that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like that was very. I mean, and it's like it's a
Yeah.
good portion of the episode where the sky looks like something out of some like 2001 Space Odyssey or I don't know what.
Right. Yeah.
But
Right.
it was cool looking. I'll say that.
No, it was very. Yeah. Some things of note to note there. The Donnie, is that how you say their
The language,
the language? Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Or
the
they even
Aldani people, but I think their
yeah
language is
yeah
just Donnie.
yeah. So the festival or the rituals that they have, all the singing and dancing reminded me, and tell me if you feel the same. Reminded
I know
me
what
a
you're gonna
lot of like,
say. Wait. I think I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead and say it, and I'm gonna see if I was right.
okay, it reminds me of Endor with the Ewoks.
Oh, that was not what I was thinking of.
just
But
just the celebration and the jubilation. It just reminded me
yeah,
of that, and like the obviously the Death Star blowing up in the sky, kind of like the eye.
yeah.
Um, the, the parallels that I drew.
I,
So, well, what was your what was your
I was gonna go a whole different direction with
Oh, okay.
it.
Okay,
But
I can't wait to hear
I
this.
like the Ewoks comparison.
Yeah.
I was gonna go. Have you seen the movie Midsummer?
Mm-mm. Oh,
Oh,
that's the second time I've heard that movie in the past like
it's
2 days. I'm
it's
not
like
even kidding.
it wouldn't be fair to categorize it as a horror film because it's not horror, but it's more just like a psychological
Oh, okay.
film. It's very odd. It's weird. It is a weird movie. But there's a scene
Okay.
in the movie where they're all kind of like standing in a circle watching this ritual happen.
Oh,
It gave me Midsummer vibes.
gave me those feels. Okay.
Yeah, but no.
I
I
have to
think
check that out.
I like the indoor comparison better.
But yeah, but it's it because they had the one in Rise of Skywalker. They had that festival on, I forget what planet they were on when they found Lando, but kind of had those same vibes as well, just
Mhm.
a jubilation, lots of dancing type of thing. So I thought that was a nice little like, hey, this is how we were kind of a callback to those types of parties in Star Wars.
Sure, yeah. It was definitely a beautiful sight to see.
hmm And one thing and I don't know if you've read any of the High Republic books.
No, I haven't. That's actually one of the eras that I'm bad about not reading that era.
Yeah.
But no,
So
huh?
an interesting thing, there is an entity called the Eye in that as well,
Hmm.
which is so that takes place hundreds of years before A New Hope. So I think it was like 400 or 500 years, something like that. It's a
Yeah.
while back, right? But there's an entity called the Eye, and the Eye is actually, um, I believe they were someone who was able to kind of, because this is before hyperspace lanes were really a thing. This is kind of like the birth of like hyperspace lanes,
Hmm.
and obviously if you are able to navigate through those, you're able to have better trade routes. The whole politics around that, right? Um, but anyways, the Eye was able to use these hyperspace lane mappings to essentially use that to like a military advantage. So that was like what that person, and like I said, the I was like a person. So it was interesting that they chose that terminology for that, because in looking at this episode, you had people in the eye, and like, oh, by the way, we got to go back to the TIE fighters real quick. Remind me to talk about that.
Yeah.
But the TIE fighters basically chasing the freighter, and basically the Nemec had that navigation device that was able to kind
Right.
of navigate them through it, right?
Which we said was going to come
Um,
into play at some point, and
yep,
it did.
and
So
there
it,
it was.
it
Yeah.
fulfilled its purpose.
Yes, exactly. They couldn't have foreshadowed that worse, honestly, because I'm like, yeah, well, you're gonna definitely use that, right? Um, so yeah, I just thought it was an interesting tie-in that they did between the book, the book from a very much older time than and then into this series here today.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to check out more New Republic expanded universe stuff. I feel like I'm good about reading the old Republic stuff. And even
hmm
like the post original trilogy stuff. I've read a few of those, like Leia
hmm
and Luke and
Yeah, very good stuff. Yeah.
yeah. But New Republic is an era I do need to get much more into if I'm being
hmm
completely honest.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so when we talk about things not being Star Wars, you can get more, and we talked about this last episode. You cannot get more Star Wars than like Tie Fighters and the stormtroopers or the Tie Fighter pilots jumping in those. I just love that scene when they were on essentially like an outpost where they had
Hmm.
to I believe they had called in to where they were because they saw that the vault was breached, and then Cinta was in the uh control room, basically turning everything off. So um I thought that was really, it's just cool to see that kind of stuff and see them roll in, and again ultimately not make it because they outsmarted, they got outsmarted once again.
What was the feeling in the pit of your stomach when you heard that TIE fighter sound?
It felt like when I felt like Han. I was just like, Chewie, we're home. Just this is what we've been. This is why we're here. It's funny, like these small details that you and I and so many other Star Wars fans just, you hear the particular siren that they have whenever they're something, the ship's going down or whatever. You hear that, you know what that sounds like. The screeching of the TIE fighters. So um I know it's making it like romantic about it, but yeah, I mean those are the types of things that we really, as Star Wars fans, really look forward to.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. One of the few moments where it's felt like, oh, I'm watching a Star Wars show now, whereas most of
Right.
the of Andor has kind of been like a spy thriller instead, or
Right, it really has.
yeah.
And so, yeah, one other thing, when I was talking about like the time jump,
Hmm.
this is one thing. This is my shot in the dark. This would be cool if they were able to pull something off like this. So they part of the The mission was to essentially hold hostage the commandant and his family, right?
Uh-huh.
And there was a little boy there named Leonard that was kind of part of the hostages there. Wouldn't it be cool if they somehow incorporate him into the rest of the series?
Hmm.
Because we always see it from the sides of the rebellions, how the Empire did this to them, the Empire did that. The rebels did something to that family, right? I mean, it seems like the commandant had passed because it looks like he had a heart attack or some type of medical, emergency
Yeah, that's a
when
good
he was
point.
moving things around. But I mean, the rebels are very, very much the bad guys in this situation. If like this happened, I mean, even still, he was held hostage by them. So this isn't the origin story of somebody who becomes a rebel, part of the rebellion. This is a storyline of somebody who is 100% part of the empire. So it would be cool if they were to incorporate him into something later on, like into this, even to the season. That's why I say, like, if you could even do a time jump right now, you give that kid a year, you give that kid 2 years, then he's guns blazing as part of the empire.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice to, and I think that could be, um, to include, the commandant's wife and son in the episode. I think that was
Hmm.
mostly done to showcase his demeanor and part of his character being,
Yeah,
I guess, a jerk, for
yeah,
lack of
kind
a
of like
better
kind
word.
of like what you expect from the empire. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but I could see what you're saying. We get a quick glimpse of, I believe it was, the wife and the son, as well as a couple other tied up Imperial officers. As they see the freighter fly away, they're
Right.
still tied up there. Whether he becomes a force to be reckoned with that we see later on, either in this show or another show, remains to be seen.
Right.
I guess I wouldn't. I could see it happening. Just the inclusion of him in the episode at all is is noteworthy, I guess, in that sense.
Right.
So yeah, I can see it happening.
Right. I mean, it's much like when they had Mon Mothma's daughter there. I mean,
Right.
they could have just not had that, or
Yeah. Well, we'll
y-
definitely. And I think it's hit or miss whether we'll see this Imperial,
yeah.
Commandant's son again. I mean, we'll 100% see Mon Mothma's daughter again, just on the way
Hmm.
that was portrayed in whatever it was. That episode 4, I think we saw her.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so even if it wasn't something that comes out of this season, if it's next season, that'd be cool. Honestly, even if it made into a comic or something, that would be cool. I mean, just I feel like that we do get the rebellion story a lot, and sometimes to see the other side of the story where they truly do think, and I think Clone Wars did a good job at that, the animated series, where, and I forget what the episode was about, but it was basically, I think it was Ahsoka and another like teenager who are on different sides. We're basically just saying, well, this is what I see because this is, the vantage point that I see, like why your side is bad. Like, and then they were like,
Mm.
well, this is what I've seen from the rebellion. This is why they're bad. So to see the actual motivation um grow within an individual. I don't think we've seen that. So if it is this boy Leonard, to ultimately become something like you said, a force to be reckoned with. Because I mean, what's he, probably 12? I mean, so he's pretty young. Um, so he'd only be a teenager by the time a new Rogue One would be around. But still, I mean, to have something a little callback to him at some point, I think would be pretty cool.
Do you remember the random theory I threw out the last podcast episode
What was that?
about Nimic being Snoke?
Oh no,
This Imperial Commandant's son is Snoke.
you did it.
I'm gonna pick someone every
You did it.
episode of Andor who's new,
Who
a-
is Snoke?
and then I'm
Yeah.
just gonna wildly theorize that person becomes Snoke in the future.
Okay. Can you name the episode, today's episode? We found Snoke
We found Snoke.
again.
Not clickbait.
Yeah, right.
Um, another thought I had, mainly about this episode, but kind of about the last 3 episodes altogether. As you mentioned, we've kind of had 2 sets of trilogies of episodes so far in this show.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the distance, the growing distance, episode by episode, the past three, um, from the viewer to the non-Rebel Cell characters is harmful in any way to the progression of the show? Do you feel like we're losing touch with Luthen, Mon Mothma,
Right.
Miro, all Karn, all these other characters who some of which weren't even in the episode, or if they were in the episode, didn't even have a speaking line. Um,
Hmm.
like, are we going to care when whatever it is in the next time jump, a year, 2 years from now, Miro is like, oh, we're still hot on the tail of this
All right.
um Cassian fellow, or they wouldn't probably have his real name. They'd probably use his his fake name, whatever.
Yeah.
Why am I blank? Clem.
Clem.
Yeah,
Clem.
they'd probably be like, oh, we're still hot on the tail of this Clem fellow. But are we gonna care? Are we gonna be like, Miro? Why should we care? Because you haven't been
Right.
in the last 2 or 3 episodes that much.
Right. I think I mean you make a good point. We are towing the line of dangerous territory where you just don't care about those particular characters much longer. Um.
I'm kind of already
The
at that
show.
point with Karn, if I'm
Yeah.
being honest.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um. Excuse me. The show after all is called Andor, so
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, it's fair.
I think we want we want the Star Wars formula to fit here, where
Yeah.
the bad guy, and like we said, the first 3 episodes was Karn. Karn was the bad guy, and then kind of Miro kind of sprinkled in there a little bit later, and but characters like Mon Mothma, like Luthen, they're always going to be these kind of outside people helping the cause or helping so not to have so much of an emphasis on them. But honestly, if we talk about just the whole of the series, um I'm trying to think just episode by episode. I mean, the last 3 episodes, it was this rebel cell. That's kind of who you cared about. Now they're all gone, essentially. Mostly all gone.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we
so now
don't we
you're
don't
just
even
like,
know for sure. I think it'd be odd if they weren't in the rest of the show, but we don't even know for sure if Vel and Cinta are going to be in the rest of the
right,
show.
right, because I mean, the way they left both of them, really, I was gonna say Cinta, but really both of them. Cinta kind of walks into the sunset, practically, basically. You
Yeah.
know, um, and oh yeah, and the Vel Cinta dynamic there felt a little more than just partners in this
Oh yeah.
partners in this mission. So
Yeah. They're more than
they're
friends.
they're they're more than friends, and the you don't shoot that hand over hand thing as shot without implying something, which is fine. But so that there's more of a connection there. They will be together at some point, but they very much left Cinta like into the sunset, and I can't remember what was it. Did Vel say something like "Tell me you'll be okay" or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think that's a send off, or do you think that adds to the
that's what I
evidence
mean.
that we'll see them again?
That I mean, "Tell me you'll be okay" sounds more like a send off to me. That it's just going to be like, well,
That it's just
yeah,
implied that they see each other again after this episode, and we don't see them as part of the show again.
no, no, no. I mean, not in that sense. I mean, like they won't be seen together for a while at least.
Oh, I see.
Like there's, I wonder if there's more to Cinta's mission now. You know, because I mean,
Oh, I see what you're
I
saying.
know she blended in as as an officer going, with the native people there. But is her mission done? I would love to see that.
Hmm.
If how we were talking about, this was the first part of it, this raid getting the credits. That was the first part. The second part is this part of that part, that second part where she now kind of has her own mission, side mission now
Huh.
to accomplish.
That's interesting.
Um, and Vel is out to deliver the credits. So that these are all hopes. I would, to have that type of time would be perfect. But I mean, I think much like um when Cinta and Vel split off from the rest of the team, because they had to do different missions. I'm wondering if this is something very similar.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't even think about that at the end of the episode when she walks off on the Imperial outfit. I kind of just thought it was to make an escape, but
Right.
yeah, and then my second thought would be moving into the next episode if we do get a time jump like we're guessing we might, is that mission part 2 that Cinta goes on something we get to see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I
so
mean which would be wild because once again past 2 episodes there was nothing about Cinta practically, and now you have a whole thing like around her. So it
yeah.
would be it would drive me crazy because it's like this wasn't somebody that you really invested in early on, but
Yeah.
then we're supposed to, I think you and we were intrigued by her character already, maybe because of the shroud of like not having a lot of information about, but just like little tips here and there. She's the toughest one. She obviously shot first. Now that when given the chance,
Is that the
so
new
she's
is that the new Star Wars hashtag movement? We're changing it from Han shot first to Cinta shot first.
she's the shot first. That's right. Let's go. We gotta do that now. I'm going on Twitter. But yeah, I think that would be smart if they did that too. If they went kind of right into the next thing here with her, or with Vel, um, because and then Cassian just like, all right, I'm off to the next thing. I'm gone. You know, and then so by the time they all meet up again, because God, I truly hope Bix comes back. I keep saying this. If Bix comes back and her character, has had time to, develop and be even more part of the rebellion and finding her way. Um, yeah, it's just I get a little worried because when we have discussions like this with people like you and me, we just we love to talk about it. We have all of these thoughts of what we would want, and then either we get it or we don't, and then either we're happy or we're not. So, um, but it's fun. I mean, this is why we have these discussions to flesh out our own crazy theories.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world in which we don't get Bix back in this show. I would be utterly shocked if we don't see her again. Even this season, I think we'll definitely be seeing her again at some point. And
Hmm.
actually, maybe that's how they open the next episode. Maybe,
Yeah.
Castian is back with Bix. Maybe he's reunited with her. Um,
Right.
I hope we get Saw in the next episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think
Or at
that,
least in the next 3 episodes, apparently. That's what it's seeming like.
yeah. I initially thought we'd meet Saw, like Cassian would meet Saw as a result of Luthen. But having
Hmm.
seen the end of this episode, I think he could meet Saw independent of Luthen, particularly if he kind of like takes Nemec's manifesto and runs with it.
Right.
He could like seek out, rebel cells, and then that's how he finds
Hmm.
Saw eventually.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm looking
and
forward to
again,
the
like,
second half of
and
the season.
again, Andor being the name of the show, Saw is going to be kind of an outside character again,
Hmm.
So I think I don't want to be that guy to be pessimistic, to be, like, oh, he's going to be like in one episode and that's it type of thing, but maybe
Yeah, that might be the
maybe that's
case.
something we see.
Which I think now that we've had half of a season, I think we're much more understanding of how this show is going to work. And episode 6 sealed that home for me, at least. Um, if we are expecting a predictable, normal Disney-esque, quote unquote, Star Wars even storyline, um, we're not getting that so far, which is fine.
Right.
I'm all here for that. But Saw is probably not gonna like show up, be this mentor to Cassian for 6
Right.
episodes and like go on this adventure with him.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I'm
He's not
okay with
gonna
that.
ride. He's not gonna ride in on the Millennium Falcon at the very last second and shoot down Darth Vader. That's just not gonna. Yeah, that's not what we should expect. I mean, a lot of the a lot of the imagery was pretty dark. To see I mean, it's a lot like Rogue One, where the entire cell was gone.
Mhm.
Everyone didn't make it. Um, and in that same style, this is kind of what happened here. Where I mean, of course you had to have Cassian make it, and a couple of others, but to see, at least for now, again, we don't know for sure about Lieutenant Gorn at this point, but they sure made it seem like it. They sure made it seem like it.
Yeah.
Um,
I sure hope we see him
but
again.
yeah, but there's just that imagery of the people that you essentially invested in, and even Skeen. We could talk about that again, where just like, well, you kind of were
Yeah.
on his side for this entire time, and then for the very last minute, probably minute of dialogue with him, completely turn it all around, and
Right.
then
At
he's
least
gone.
at least with Nemec, while it was like really sad, it didn't change anything fundamentally about the character. Like sure you were like devastated that he died. But, ultimately it served a purpose in the grand scheme of things in the plot, like
Right.
giving Cassian this manifesto. Nemec, it was just, or excuse me, Skeen, it was just kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I mean, we talked about it already, but
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
just
But we just want to hammer down that point.
proving the show is not by the book when it comes to the Star Wars Z-ness of it, I guess
Right.
is how I'll say it.
Yes.
um, maybe to wrap things up, closing thoughts. How did you feel about the episode as a whole? What grade would you give the episode?
I'm giving it an A. I mean, although there was little things here and there that we've discussed about what we didn't like about it, solid A. It gave us the raid. It gave us some twists and turns. Um,
We got the
I
dopamine.
got the dopamine. I mean, that's kind of what we've been waiting for this entire series? Question mark? Maybe like
Yeah, I mean,
to really, because I mean I'm watching it and I'm leaning. I'm a leaner, right? I'm leaning on my edge of my seat, waiting to see what's going to happen next and how they're going to do it. Um, and I mean, just there was so many storylines kind of going at the same time. You got the ritual of the eye kind of happening. You've got what's happening with Cinta and Vel. You got to see what's happening with Gorn. And there's just all this stuff kind of happening at once, and that's kind of real time. I love when stories do that.
mm,
Until they finally all converge together. You see the commandant realizing that Goran's involved, and just like everything um was great. So yeah, I'm giving it a solid A.
nice. So far in our gradings, have you usually been lower or have I usually been lower?
I think I have been lower just by like a half a point.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I think I'm gonna go actually A minus. So I'll take the
Okay.
lower grade on this one.
Yeah.
Um, obviously for the same reasons you said, we finally got the action. We finally got the raid. Um, there's just I feel like I was so nitpicky about this episode. And I don't know why. Because I don't think I've been very nitpicky about the show. But then we get
Mhm.
this action oriented episode, and I'm like, well, that didn't really feel like it made sense. I don't know about that decision. Um, the character of not to bring it up again, but the character of Nemec is probably a decent reason
Yeah.
why. I just felt
Yeah.
that
Right.
felt like that was curious storytelling, particularly like the waffling.
You mean Skeen, not Nemec.
Oh,
Skeen.
excuse me, Skeen. Yeah, I keep
Yeah.
saying I keep switching the two in my brain, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skeen. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah, Skeen. Like the waffling of his character and is he a rebel? Is he not a rebel? At some point, at the
Mhm.
point in the episode, he's like, I am a rebel, but I'm against everybody. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
buddy.
Like what? Since when? Yeah. Yeah. Right.
yeah.
And I mean, yeah, that would be more understandable from Andor's standpoint. Not in in
Mm,
in where we were in time
yeah.
for him to be like, this is me against everyone.
Yeah. It did
Um.
not. Yeah, and just to like put kind of a bow, I guess, on the character of Skeen. Like, was his plan really from the beginning, like make away with the money? I mean,
It had to
it
be.
had to have
It
been,
had to have
right?
been. You had the story about your brother.
Yeah, he made up a story about his like non-existent dead brother.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, he's going on this dangerous, perilous mission where he like
Mm-hmm.
very easily could lose his life
Right.
for these funds. Like that's all I can explain. Which okay, by the way, this is the other thing I was gonna say for why I'm giving it an A minus.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is my own fault for not having an understanding of it, but they said it was 80 million credits. Is that right? 80 million?
80 million. Yes.
Um, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how the overarching financial system of Star Wars works. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what 80
Yeah. Yeah.
million
Right.
credits is in relation to how much it takes to back a rebellion, right?
Right. 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 Yeah.
I would assume it does a lot to help,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
like, is that really all this was about?
Right.
And I don't think we're gonna get the answer to it, which is gonna irk me even more.
Right.
I think we're just like the viewer going into the next 3 episodes. I don't even think it's gonna be talked about because we're like you said, we're probably gonna get a time jump, and so looking back on the episode, it's just gonna be assumed. Well, we needed this for funds for a rebellion,
Right.
which
I mean, they did touch on that a little bit when Luthen and Mon Mothma were having their discussions,
yeah,
um,
I
in the
yeah I guess
previous episodes, where like, where's this money going to come from? And we need this money. We can't, we're already making cuts here and there, whatever. So I think we know that's probably where it's going,
yeah.
um,
I just
without being explicit, like seeing them handing over the money or whatever. But
right.
I would think that's a fair assumption that that's where all of that is being funded to.
I want to know how much Luthen and Mon Mothma and whoever else is like already pouring into the rebellion. Just
Right,
so I have an idea of how influential the 80 million is.
right.
I want to know that the sacrifice was worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they already?
The sacrifice of the characters or our time? Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
that would be the reasoning for me.
That makes
But
sense.
for the sole sake, having said that, I'm still giving it, an A minus, which
Yeah.
is I think the highest grade we've given an episode so far. A and A
I mean, this is
minus.
definitely, yeah. This is definitely A is definitely the highest I've given an episode.
I may,
Probably earlier on, I maybe an
yeah,
A minus around there.
I may have given episode 1 an A minus as well, but
Hmm.
this was my favorite episode, even with some of the nitpicky stuff that I've been talking about. My favorite episode
Absolutely
of the series so far.
agreed.
A maybe not masterpiece, but
Right.
we're working our way towards hopefully what is becoming an intriguing story. But
Right. And I mean,
I still need to be sold on some of the characters.
yeah, no, that's fine. And I think that I think with every series, it works on the curve, right? So we're it's a relative to what we've seen with this series. If we compare it to, like, if you and I were doing this podcast for like the first season of Mandalorian, would these grades have paired up, or would they have matched to and made sense? So I think in terms of this particular series, I think this is, like you said, I think this was the best episode that we've seen so far.
On that, we are definitely agreed. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye for this one?
I mean, I am excited to see what the second half of this series will bring.
Mm.
Please bring back Bix. Please
We
let's
beg.
see some Saw Gerrera.
We got our dopamine. Now give us our characters.
Yeah, give us yeah. We are so needy as Star Wars fans, and so please, I mean, you all just heard this man give this show an A minus, but still throwing out. But however,
I want an A plus, Joey. I want an A plus.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what the next half of the season is. I pray that we don't get any filler episodes. I am a little worried about that, I will say. I feel that's kind of when we saw some of the Mandalorian, or especially Boba Fett episodes, where they were just filler, like kind of midway through the series. So hopefully we don't see anything of that. But if they are truly sticking to this, what seems like a formula of like 3 episode arcs, essentially,
Mhm.
I think that I think we're in for a good ending of the season.
Yeah. Speaking of filler, Boba Fett kind of felt like half the show was filler episodes.
Unfortunately, it did. And what could have been? I mean, I was never, and I don't know where your stance was. I was never like a huge Boba Fett fan. I know there's like a lot of people that are
Yeah,
just,
there's people that
you
are
know,
nuts about him, like, and we're just
yeah,
like, I don't, whatever the step beyond angry is, that's how they felt about the new Boba Fett show.
yeah, and I mean rightfully so. I mean they had waited for decades,
Yeah,
basically of new Boba Fett uh material. Well, I guess
yeah, 40 years.
yeah, 40 years. Well, technically, I guess the prequel had him in there. So,
Yeah,
but
that was
you know what
cool
I mean?
too.
Like, yeah. But I mean, you know, full fledged Boba Fett. You know, I think that was an unfortunate long wait for them to have to see that kind of happen with them. Do they have a season 2 of Boba Fett? Do you know?
Oh gosh, I hope
Is,
not.
is there a plan?
I
Is there a
think I
plan for
think it
that? Yeah.
actually is in production. I don't
Okay.
know that for sure, but they better rethink that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But I mean,
I'm pretty sure it did get
yeah.
greenlit for a second season, if I'm
Yeah. I wouldn't
remembering.
be surprised. Anything Star Wars, for the most part, I think we'll always get at least a second season.
But like that's a show that I think hopefully after the second season they just unless they just
And let it go.
yeah, unless they fix it in some major way, I think they let it go after season 2.
Right. Yeah. But yeah. So I let's hope we don't get some fillers. Let's hope we don't Boba Fett this one.
Yeah. Also, in other Star Wars news, the official countdown begins for Tales of the Jedi. We are now less than 2 weeks away
Oh
from the
my God,
first
are we
episode
really?
of that. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So,
I gotta get my audiobooks out. Listen to Ahsoka and
true.
Count Dooku
I
before
got,
we do that.
I gotta listen to the Ahsoka book as well. Um, so that'll come out here on the channel. TBD in terms of what form that might be, but we're thinking there will definitely be multiple Hoth Hangout podcast episodes, more than likely 2 weeks from now, that are available. Both if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, or if you're watching this on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Hey, it's us.
Um, Loved the episode. We are now officially halfway through Andor. We will be coming at you again next week, covering episode 7, as well as the following week with episode 8 and episode 1 of Tales of the Jedi. We're pumped for it. We're excited. Lots of Star Wars. It's a fun and exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. For Joey, I'm Ben, and you've been listening to the Hoth Hangout podcast. Appreciate y'all, and we'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you.
Dopamine.